Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Harbin Clinic, Meraki for Patient Care. I am Kristen Glass, your host for today's webinar. Today, I am joined by my colleague, Paul Wolf, from our product marketing team, and our customer, Ernest Stotts, who implemented Meraki at Harbin Clinic. If you have any questions throughout today's webinar, make sure to ask them in the Q&A panel in the WebEx interface. For today's webinar, we have an agenda where we're going to give an introduction as well as a general information about Meraki. And then after giving information about Meraki, we're going to dive into a case study of the Harbin Clinic. And Ernest Stotts is also going to give a live demo of how the Harbin Clinic is using Meraki today. After the live demo, we're going to give you more information about Meraki's product families before hopping into a Q&A. Next slide. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background about Cisco Meraki. Our mission is to simplify across IT with cloud management. We are a complete cloud managed networking solution, and we have wireless, switching, security, communications, EMM, and security cameras. Additionally, we have integrated hardware, software, and cloud services. Today, we are the leader in cloud managed networking, and we are among Cisco's fastest growing portfolios. We have over 200,000 customers, and there are over 1 million Meraki networks in the world today. At this point in time, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Ernest Stotts, and he can talk about implementing Meraki at Harbin Clinic.
Thank you so much. And it has been a really successful experience at Harbin Clinic to have Meraki here. And this was after we looked at several solutions and trying to determine what was going to be the best fit. First, I'd like to kind of give you just an overview of Harbin Clinic so you kind of have a better understanding of what makes up Harbin Clinic's network and what we were looking at. A little bit about Harbin. Harbin has provided innovative patient care for over 100 years. It's the largest privately owned multi-specialty physician group in Georgia. We have 240 medical professionals representing 40 different medical specialties and services. There are 21 buildings where we physically have, where we're providing services. There are actually more than 24 buildings where we actually have auxiliary services, but we're not necessarily seeing patients. 21 of those buildings are actually buildings where we're seeing patients. And we're spread over a pretty good sized distance, and we'll get into that a little bit. First, I want to kind of talk about our network before. This is not a stock photo. I wish it was. That was a real closet. So when I first came to Harbin Clinic a couple of years ago, we were looking at the network, and I found that there was no documentation, no management, no real visibility into the network. It was all flat layer 2 network, 24 buildings that we were dealing with at that time with a 100-mile radius between them. We had 32 different VLANs, but they were all going to every building, and they were all /16s. So our broadcast traffic was completely filling our pipe. One of our buildings, Harbin is mostly centered in the city of Rome, Georgia. But we have auxiliaries clear down towards North Atlanta and then further north out of Atlanta a good ways into the mountains and the foothills here. Part of the problem was some of our buildings, we have a larger building down in Cartersville, and in that particular building, which was the building you first saw, the first slide was actually a picture of the Cartersville, one of our buildings in Cartersville. We actually have a couple sites there now. But that particular building, they literally had a full dark gigabit fiber optic, and they were dropping packets every 3 to 5 minutes, just due to it was totally full. The bandwidth was 100% utilized, and they were dropping packets. So a significant amount of packets. So that was really impacting patient care. Things weren't working properly. There was the guest Wi-Fi that was unfiltered. Literally, my first couple days on the job, I get this email letter saying, hey, we got a cease and desist letter. How do we take care of this guest wireless? We need to have a splash page. We need to have something we can turn around very quickly and take care of this. But we also want to make it easy for patients to be on the guest Wi-Fi. We want to give them a good experience, but we also want to control it and be able to meet the regulations that we need to. and not be serving up inappropriate content for youth who might be getting on our guest wireless or whatever else. And I had worked with Meraki before, doing consulting quite a bit in actually the K-12 space and in some other organizations as well. And I said, I know that we can stand up a firewall literally within minutes of getting it here. We can do a nice customized splash page. We just make the click through, just a very good experience for them. And I got the green light. We put it in just within a couple of weeks, and it was there. By the time we got it ordered and processed and then, you know, brought in, literally same day it was in, less than an hour later, I had it in, unboxed, updated, in place, done. So it was a very good thing, and they were very happy with that. We also had a staff that was very untrained, especially at the building level. As you can see, this picture took time to develop this kind of a mess. And that was kind of the problem, was the staff didn't know better. So when we were realizing that we're doing a complete network redesign, and I wanted to go to port-based VLAN so we could put printers on one network, medical devices on another. We wanted to have a much more controlled and secure environment. I realized that I was dealing with a very untrained staff. So that was part of the problem, was we needed to go from this kind of a mess into something that really worked. They needed help. So the next process was choosing our vendors. Who, you know, traditionally they'd been a traditional Cisco shop, which has worked well for them, but it didn't work so well when we scaled it out to the buildings with the building techs, and especially spread across all these places. There's no way the network team could go and plug in every single thing that needed to be plugged in. We needed to make it so building techs would have that ability. So we looked at our staff abilities, or lack thereof, as far as our level 1 and level 2 techs specifically, and we needed something that would be able to teach them and be sustainable. And I looked at where we were, I looked at where the goal was for us to reach, and then we evaluated some on-premise vendors, multiple ones, and then we tested Meraki in a trial experience, and I was able to very quickly train the staff, even the less skilled staff, to be able to go in, understand how Meraki works, be able to change a port, know what they needed to do. And so that was the solution we made. So basically we looked at where we wanted to be, we looked at where we were, we looked at our biggest liability, which was our staff, and then I chose a product that would allow us to reach our future state with the staff that we had. Simplicity was something that was really important for us. We needed to be able to, I wanted to move to a complete layer 3 port-based VLAN network, and I needed something that I knew we were going to have a very aggressive timeline for this. We were given about 6 months, not quite a full 6 months, to go to 24 buildings, and you know, we're ripping and replacing 170 switches, and we're not just changing out switches. We're going into some of those data closets like that one you saw with hedge trimmers. And we're cutting out the mess and rewiring and fixing it, and we're re-IPing every single building. And that was a huge undertaking. Especially some of our buildings, we had as many as 14 different vendors that had to come meet us at site. And we could only do this on nights and weekends, so we're not impacting patient care. So Harbin clinics do not typically operate at night. We do have a couple of them. We have a sleep lab that obviously goes during the night, and some of our places are 7 days a week. So they are, but they're not during the nighttime hours, except for one location. So that helped us. But we were looking at a very aggressive timeline, completely re-IPing, meeting with all these vendors, meeting with all the stakeholders. I needed something that would be able to pre-stage for fast deployment and turnaround. And right here on the right side, you see this screen capture. And this is one of the things we did. I set up my master network, set all the SNMP, everything I wanted to be set for network. And then I would, when we'd get a new set of, we'd had all the switches on site, we'd go to get ready to pre-stage the next building, we'd go ahead and get it configured up, and we would pre-stage it by saying, okay, we want to clone this network, then we just change our IPs and change our names. It made for a very fast cloning and a very fast turnaround on networks. We were literally, had them, the technical side went very fast. Then actually implementing and pulling out the cabling, that took time, and cleaning up the mess and re-IPing everything. So the actual network switch part was very simple for us. These are plug-and-play devices. We needed something that we could upgrade the firmware easy. I also wanted it to be able to have a much better visibility into our network management. And that was something that was really important. This also gives us a very nice way of inventory management as well, because we can just go in, pop off this, for example, what you're seeing here on the right side is you're seeing a piece of equipment that is not yet deployed, and this is a firewall. And so I can go ahead and say, I want to deploy this firewall, and then I can export it as CSV, and I've got very good inventory. So one of the things I talked with our administration, we were looking at the possibility of Meraki, because this was a new territory for them, was I said, if we come at it with an open mind, I think you'll be surprised with the results. And very much so, very pleased. Before in Harbin's network, honestly, people, when there was an issue, the first thing that when we were dealing with the vendors, and these are major vendors in the medical field, they would say, well, it's Harbin's network. Well, because we had no visibility, because we had no way of really knowing what was going on the network, and the broadcast traffic was a mess, we couldn't dispute them, to be honest. We've been able to change that paradigm completely, and we'll talk about that some more as we get into it, but it was the ability for us to be able to go back to the vendors and say, here's our bandwidth, here's our utilizations, we can go right down to your device, we see where the issue is, and it's not with the network. So that has been a very strong win for Harbin Clinic. So during the conversion process, again, it was, as you can see, it was, late at night, typically on site, either one night or during the weekend. We had hours to flip it. Even when we had a weekend, typically some of the larger buildings, there'd be physicians that would want to come in during the weekend. So the actual flipping of the network would happen within hours. Pulling out the switches, moving stuff around in the racks, and repatching and recabling. And then start re-IPing stuff and get the physician-facing machines who needed to come in during the weekend, get them up and running as fast as possible. And one of the things that made it very simple for us is we found a lot of equipment we didn't even know we had on our network, to be honest. And one of the things we would do is we would use the search is absolutely an amazing feature. We'd come into that particular building and we'd have all the switches for that building in one network. How we decided to break it out is inside Meraki dashboard is we built each building as its own individual network. And we can go see the whole overview of the whole system, but then, and we'll look at this in a little bit, but then we were able to break each building into its own container, if you will. So I could go into that building, I could type in the word Avaya. Harbin Clinic presently has some Avaya phones. We're in the process of changing those out, but right now that is where Harbin Clinic is at. I could go and type Avaya, I could find all the Avaya equipment, and it allowed me very quickly to be able to see what VLAN is it on, I've got my manufacturer, and I can see what switch port it's on. So then I can go change it to whatever VLAN I wish to put it on. So if I've got a voice VLAN that I particularly want to put this equipment on, then I would move it over to there. So we got some real value add coming from this with the deeper insight. The layer 7 visibility, we found stuff, like I said before, we didn't even know we had on our network. We didn't realize we were running Oracle server at one location. We didn't even know it existed. We didn't realize the amount of SSH traffic we were running. And this was able to help give us a better idea of what was happening in the buildings. And the detailed search capabilities in our virtual stacks, basically inside of our networks, what we did, we used Boolean expressions. For example, this is one, and we'll do this in a minute, the VLAN 380, and this particular building, that was the data VLAN. And you're seeing not Hewlett or Wise, and those are Hewlett-Packard PCs or Wise technology. So I'm trying to find anything that's on that network, like maybe a Ricoh printer or something else, and I don't want that on the data network. I want it on the print VLAN. So it made it very simple for us to find devices. We found several printers that we didn't even know were being used or plugged into the network. We found, again, many, many pieces of equipment throughout this conversion, and we were able to document it. The network cloning, which I showed you a screenshot before for rapid deployments, was fantastic. And we really enjoy network tagging. What we have done at Harbin Clinic, we basically set up our switches so that way the management ports or the trunking ports, the local building techs don't have the ability to modify or edit those. And certain ports, like if it goes to a medical device equipment that could impact patient care, I don't give the building tech the ability to go in and change that port. Or if it's a server port, or if there's a special piece of equipment on there, we don't want them to be able to change the configuration on that port. And we'll look at that in just a second. And basically how we did that we did it through something called tagging. And we put in the tag, we just chose a word, access. And basically what we did is we said building techs have no ability to access anything inside Harbin Clinic unless it has the tag word of access. If it's got the tag word of access, they're allowed to edit, modify, change, move VLANs, all that kind of stuff. So that is something that was absolutely wonderful to keep from taking out an entire building or taking out an entire switch. This is the present state we're looking at of Harbin Clinic today. It is a documented network, and over here on the far right-hand side, you're able to see that we have this documentation where, and this was just what we came up with for our naming scheme. So if you think it's odd, it's probably due to me. I'm kind of odd. So what we try to do is we try to name things something that we would remember. So you can see, for example, we named it by city here, Rome, and then the building, our SCI building, and then we did closet numbers. And you're going to see this in a minute when we go into the dashboard. Excuse me. And then we, for the closet numbers, the first number denoted what floor it was on, and then the second was which closet number it was, if there's more than one closet on a floor. And then we also then put the switch or whatever the device was. So if it was a switch or if it was a firewall, and that's what you see down here. What I wanted to do in a naming convention was I wanted to be able to automatically say, this is a routing switch. So RTS for us was routing switch. RSS is a routing stack switch. So if we have stacked switches, if we've got firewalls, a wireless access point, a UPS, we wanted something so that way when we're doing our naming convention, we automatically knew what the device was. We also went ahead and labeled each of the switches. And you can see that we went with a 2-color scheme. And I can tell you personally from experience, I've gone with a rainbow color scheme before, and that usually lasts about a day. And then somebody has the wrong patch cable, and then they just do whatever. So we have found this to be very simple. Basically, we've gone with the standard that if it's red, building techs are not allowed to touch it. Red means stop. Black, the building techs can change any of these ports. They can change any of these cables, not a problem. They're fully open to them. The red cables have to be done by someone on the technical level of network team or higher. So that's one of the either level 1 or level 2 techs on the network team. It cannot be done by a building tech. So we use the management dashboard for Meraki, and we also use WhatsUp Gold for network monitoring. And this has given us greater visibility. We are doing a full layer 3 network throughout. As you can see right here on this this was right after we flipped the building. We did not have, this is an MX firewall. We did not have the redundant firewall. The data drop from AT&T was not in at this time. It's now in. But when I took this picture, this data drop was not in. So we basically, at the top of the stack, we put a firewall, and then we went ahead and pre-configured them, and then we put them in place. So when we did plug them into AT&T, they were ready to go. So which was fantastic. So, and then we, did the guest Wi-Fi filter. We are using Auto VPN, which has been really good for us. We have an ophthalmologist who travels around. He literally has a little MX firewall that has a USB port that has a cellular modem in the back. That when he goes to a couple clinics where we don't own the clinic at all, he just visits a couple iPlaces, he literally takes this Wi-Fi device in there and it makes an auto VPN, so it's all encrypted. It's basically like taking wherever he's got power, he's got our network, because he's plugged in using a cellular connection and we're using auto VPN, so it's all encrypted right back to our network. So that was very good for us, and we're also using that at another heart center down in the Atlanta metro area. So we use 2-factor authentication for all of our remote network devices. Again, that's another compliance checkbox. For HIPAA, it makes OCR very happy when you're able to say, yes, the core network equipment has 2-factor authentication. And the layer 7 firewall for traffic shaping and content filtering. Basically what we're doing is if they're going through our main, we've got dark fiber going to all of our locations. And then from there we go out through traditional Cisco, ASA, and SourceFire firewall. But on our backup connections, we've got a much smaller pipe. Because we've got a much smaller pipe, what I've done is I've added another layer of filtering right here. So typically we allow Facebook, YouTube, stuff like that. But what we've done is this particular firewall is actually a layer 2 connection back to our internal network. But because if they're on the failover circuit, I want to limit their bandwidth. I get rid of Facebook, YouTube, anything that's going to suck up bandwidth. We're only taking care of the medical information. And because we use a cloud-based EMR, that's one of the things we wanted to make sure that we guaranteed and gave that guaranteed bandwidth. And the same thing with our voice. We're moving to a full voice sit solution. As we're doing that, that was one of the other considerations we wanted to make sure that we guaranteed that phones were always going to work. Some unexpected benefits. We were not expecting to be able to find some of the devices, and we got some visibility. We found out that some physicians had bought some equipment, or a particular department bought some equipment we didn't know. That was unexpected to us. We've also been able to remediate some security issues. Let me just give you one example. We have a managed security stock, that a managed security provider that literally calls me at 2 in the morning, or they've called me all crazy hours, saying, hey, Ernest, we're noticing this going on in your network. One of the fantastic things is they give me the IP. I can roll out of bed, grab my laptop. I can go in, by the IP. I already know what city and what building I'm dealing with. And then my third octet, all I do is they give me the third and fourth octet. I'm able to go in there and put it into the Meraki dashboard, search by the IP. I find exactly what switch port it's connecting to, right click, disable. Bam, that device is off the network. And we literally had one computer that had ransomware on it. It didn't have any medical data on it, thankfully, but it did have ransomware on it. So we were able to, we got the information, and this is the computer. And before it spread to any other machines, less than 2 minutes after the time from the time I had got the call, we had the device off the network, and it did not spread to anywhere else. Very, very excited about that. That saved us a lot of trouble. And we have found servers and systems that were unknown to IT. And again, the search feature, when we would go to flip a building, we'd go re-IP, we'd run a script and re-IP all of our printers and do all stuff before we take down the old switches. And we'd re-IP them, then we'd go plug them in. Well, sometimes the script didn't work right, or something else didn't work right, so we'd go in there and find out, oh, they had the wrong gateway, or they've got this, or they've got the wrong IP number. Well, as soon as we plug them into Meraki, even though Meraki may not be able to talk to them because they've got the wrong IP number, that at least shows up in the Meraki dashboard and it tells me what IP that it thinks what IP it has. So even though I can't talk to it, it's saying, Meraki's saying, here's the IP that it's got on the device. Well, then I automatically knew that the device was mis-IP'd. I'm able to send a tech out to go find that printer and then go fix the problem that was wrong and then get the thing back on the network, move it to the proper VLAN, we're good to go. That was fantastic for doing our conversions in our buildings. Some of the value add is the proactive alerting. This is something that has done a lot to help some of the physicians to feel better, not only about the spend at Harbin Clinic, but also about the IT department at Harbin Clinic. We've literally, multiple times, we've gone in and our service desk will go in and they'll say, they go look at our networks and say, hey, wait a minute, we've got some alerts coming out where switches are telling us. And just to kind of give you an idea, on the switch, if it goes offline for 5 minutes, then we're automatically, we know instead of before, we could, especially if it happens at nighttime, we wouldn't know because no one's monitoring that all the time. This way, we automatically get an alert. If a DHCP server is detected that we're not expecting, again, somebody buys a router from Home Depot and plugs it in, Office Depot and plugs it in, we've got problems. And automatically, we can take care of this and we'll know about it. So, and one of the things that really helped us was be able to detect a cable error. We literally had a couple different places where the cleaning crew would come through, they vacuumed over a printer cable, printer network drop. And we were starting to notice that we were getting errors on this printer cable. So I sent out one of my techs, and I even went to one of our buildings in Calhoun, and we went there and we pulled out the network cable. And they're like, what are you guys doing here? We're like, oh, you've got a cable that's about to go bad, we think. We're checking on it. They're like, really? And they were really surprised that we were there before it even failed. We pulled out the cable. We could see where it had been vacuumed. It had eaten through really bad. And so we were able to pull out the cable, change the cable out, and then show them the cable. Here's what was about to fail. Your printer was going to stop working here real soon, but we fixed it. You're good to go. And they were so excited that we were fixing the problem before it really became a problem. So that was something that was really good for us. And then also one of the things that we also use that's really good, partly just for documentation, but also just to give us a heads up. So if a building tech is going out and changing, now during a conversion, I will tell you, I do not have this checked because our email would be flooded. But after the building's converted and the building's stable, then I come in and I check. Configuration settings are changed. I want to know if someone's making a change on a switch port and if they're changing VLANs. Again, that's not happening all the time. but it kind of gives us an idea that something's going on the network. Those two things have been really, really good. So, and we also kind of compared, even though Meraki technically doesn't do true net flow, we compared it to what we're doing at all of our sites are connecting into a traditional Cisco core switch. We compared our net flow statistics from our aggregate traditional Cisco switch to what the amount of data was being utilized on the Meraki dashboard. And we found out that they were matching up super close. So that was something that was really good for us to realize that even though not technically true net flow, it was coming out exactly the same or very, very close. Meraki tech support has been very awesome for us. We have literally been on the phone at midnight. We had one building that went through a couple different fiber hops, a couple different fiber companies, the dark fiber did, and we were trying something very different outside of the box, and they have stuck with us on the phone as we troubleshoot stuff. Very, very good. The centralized visibility has empowered our help desk. A lot of things that would have automatically gone to the network team in the past, the service desk and our help desk team, they're able to automatically fix themselves. Or the building techs can go in and investigate, and they can fix while they're on site. So it has really helped us to be more proactive and more able to meet the customer demands. If we had a traditional switching solution, that would be it would take more technical skills to solve some of these problems. But because of the cloud-based dashboard, which is so easy to use, we're able to take it down to a much lower level and get it closer to people reporting the problem, which has been very good. We have been able to use our dashboard to improve the network stability and availability to our vendors. Again, you saw the picture before of what Harbin's network was. Obviously, we had no idea what was going on. So the vendors would call and say, it's your network, and we'd say, yeah, it might be. We've now been able to go in and do, no, here's our bandwidth, here's our errors, it's definitely not the network. And then we've also gone to the level, one of the great things we really appreciate about the Meraki switches is being able to do packet captures right at the switch port level. We've been able to go in and do switch ports. Now, most of the time when we're dealing with these big name vendors, they're calling us and they're now saying, I've literally heard them on the phone say, well, we know it's not your network. Will you please do a packet capture for us? We think there might be something misconfigured. And that's music to our ears. That's been absolutely fantastic for Harbin. So we have been able to change the conversation from it's your network to we might have a problem. Can you help us fix it? Very, very good for Harbin. The mobile app is great for checking on a system. A physician sitting there saying, hey, my network's slow. And I'm able to just pull up the mobile app, go into it, look at it. One of the administrators calls it his Facebook. He likes to just go on and check and see what's happening with the throughput at our different sites. So that's been something that's been really good for Harbin as well. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to jump into a live demo and just kind of show you some of the stuff that we have done. And let me come over here, switch screens. And just to kind of give you an idea, again, you can talk our naming convention. You can see here that this tells us this cat was for Cartersville, and then this car was the main Cartersville building. So what we're able to do, and we are pulling in automatically our switches, and you can see all of our switches. So we're looking at them, and this is looking at for the last day. Now I can go back for the last week, and when I automatically switch to the last week, you can see this red line. Well, there was an outage. Our ISP, actually, our ISP's ISP down in Atlanta, they actually had a major outage. And so we lost network connectivity to the internet. So we actually have right here, we can see no connectivity. We can see what time it was, exactly what was happening on the switch. So let me just come into on the switches here. And network wide, I'm going to look, excuse me, I'm going to look for clients, just to kind of give you an idea of how we have searched for things. So right here, I can search for, again, I can search for, so I'm just doing a search for Ys real quick. And this is, you can see I can type in name, I can type in an IP number. So if I want to go 10.38.0, oops, excuse me, .0. Let me back that up. And I'm already finding stuff that's on my data network. So, or I can type in VLAN 3, 380, and let me switch over here really quick. And one of the things that I wanted to show you, I'm trying to copy this off just so I don't have to type it all in. The Boolean search here. Give me 1 second, please. Here we go. And again, this is, let me come here, Control V. And what you're going to see is I'm going to see VLAN 380, and I'm going to, so what I'm doing is I'm looking for last week, and right here's a digiboard. Well, that's a medical device. That should not be on my network. But if you're going to notice that if I say for the last, this is for the last week, that's because I just added this into the network. And if you scroll down here, you're going to see Ricoh printers. Well, if I do this, if I switch to last 2 hours, you're going to see that the digiboard is gone. The Ricoh printers are still here because our building tech is actually scheduled, talking with them yesterday, they're scheduled to go down tomorrow and change these IPs and change the VLANs. So I know that these 2 printers are still on, they're not on the printer VLAN. One of the things we did too, what I want to show you on the switch side, which we have used a lot, if I come into, and I was coming to my routing switch, what I did for the building techs to try and make it simple for them to remember what VLAN things are supposed to go on, I put it right here in the notes. So that way they know this is the IP, this is the 3rd octet, so it's 10.38. So if it's from 0 to .7, that's the data VLAN. If it's 8 to 15, I'm in my Wi-Fi. Voice, I'm in 16 to 9. So that is something that automatically, so if they don't remember what VLAN something's supposed to be on, they can come look in my notes section and they've got everything they need right there in the dashboard. So I tried to make it as simple as possible for them to be able to remember. And what I also want to do is come over here, switches real quick. And if I remember correctly, the 4th floor. Yes, and right here you can see, fourth switch, and this is on the 2nd floor. So again, this switch here is in Cartersville, and this is Cartersville main office. We have a dialysis and some other buildings in Cartersville. And this is on the 2nd floor. This is the first closet, and this is switch number 4. And on this switch right here, I can come into this port, and you can see that I'm using power over Ethernet, and it's configured for VLAN 38. One of the things that's really great for us, and this has been something we've been able to test when someone calls in, hey, something's not working. We want to know if there's a problem with the network cable all the way down to the device. Well, I can run a cable test. As long as I'm not at 100 or 10 megabits, the user will never even know that I'm running a cable test. Does not interrupt their network at all. And I'm able to see, yep, it's totally fine. We're running at gig speed, and status on all pairs of my wires are fine. And this is something we used multiple times to go through, test the pairs. Nope, we got problems with these. Oh, yes, these are good. So that was something that was really good. Another thing we've also used, as I was telling you before, packet capture has been absolutely great. I can either view the output below or I can download a PCAP file. And I will tell you, just to give you an example, let me drop this down to 5 seconds. And I will go for the whole ball of wax. Typically, I like as much information and as much data as I can get. Now, you can filter out some garbage by getting rid of broadcast and multicast packets, but those might be causing your issues. So again, I'm not going to go into a Wireshark class here, but just very quickly, this is something that we have used with our vendors, and we'll start a capture, and this will just show you here on the screen real quick. Here's a 5-second capture of this port, and then it'll stop. So then I can copy and paste this, or I could have brought it out to a PCAP, which we can bring into Wireshark. And this is something we have found our vendors coming back to us saying, Ernest, can you please help us with this? So that is something that we have used quite a bit on our network for troubleshooting, especially with medical devices. Some medical devices are not well done, even though they might be a well-known name in the medical industry. So Another thing that we have used here is you can see that there's a plus, and you can include MAC addresses. You know, you can have model names. Again, there's a lot of information that is inside of here, and you can look at client utilization. And again, there's some really interesting things when you start looking at client utilization. And let me go back to switches and switches. And you see right here, this is our head-in switch. And for our last 2 hours, you know, 20.16 gigabytes of data has gone through that switch. That's a little bit of, you know, and then you can start, again, back this out for the last day, for last week, for the last 30 days. It gives you a really good idea of what's happening on your network. So there's a lot of information, and if you drill into a switch port, you can do the same thing. So this is something where we've been able to go in and drill into a switch port of a particular user who's got a laptop or computer plugged into the network, and we're able to say, here's what your throughput's at. You're not touching the throughput on your local PC. There's no issues. Or we've been able to go back and do packet captures on their PC and say, yeah, there's a problem here. We need to fix this, or it's the vendor or it's the product that they're working with that's got a problem. So that has been something that's been really, for us, has been a fantastic value add. And I'm going to come down here. And I think right now that's pretty much what I was going to kind of give you an overview of some of the devices, some of the settings that we have used. Again, we could spend a long time on the dashboard, but it has been really, really, for us, it has been of great value, especially considering that we can do it from anywhere. Whoops, sorry. Okay, Christine, I'm going to go back to you.
Thank you so much. So now I'm going to give a few more details about the different Meraki product families. So next slide. So at Meraki, we offer a full stack. This includes our MR product, which has access points, our MX products, which are our security appliance products, our MS product, which is our Ethernet switches, our EMM product, which is a systems manager, our phone product, which is called our MC or our communications product, and we also have Meraki cameras, which are called our MD products. Next slide. So for next steps, feel free to reach out to Meraki's team. You can reach out to us for a risk-free evaluation. There's also more information about our products available on our website and blog. And finally, if you're interested in speaking with sales, you can always contact your Meraki sales rep. So at this point in time, we are going to begin the Q&A section of this webinar. And Ernest, the first question that we have for you is, you mentioned using Meraki's remote packet capture feature to help troubleshoot your own software. Can you speak more about that?
Yes, we have literally, one of the nice things is that when we're not even in the building, it has empowered our techs to be able to, for example, they may be 100 miles away, literally, and we got a call saying, hey, something's going on in Cartersville. They have something with an imaging device. We have literally been on the phone where we get on the phone with the imaging vendor, and then we'll say, you know, we're not seeing anything from the network side. And then they'll say, Ernest, can you please do a packet capture? Or, you know, one of my workers will, you know, can we do a packet capture? We'll go in and we've either shared our screen. Most of the time, they just want a PCAP file. We pull down the PCAP file, upload it to them, and then we start going through it, you know, using Wireshark or CAPTCHA, depending upon the vendor. Some of them are not as technical. So I've literally stepped them through using CAPTCHA, which helps them to filter out and understand the noise. And then we'll highlight stuff. Well, here's where it's obviously, there's a miscommunication. We have a wrong transmission size. We found out some stuff was using some jumbo frames. So we made an adjustment on the switch and we were good to go. So that was one of the things that, you know, that was not in their documentation. They honestly didn't know that they were using jumbo frames. So that was something that it had been a problem that had existed before we even went to Meraki switches, but we didn't know about it. So, but after we converted the network, all of a sudden people are saying, well, we thought everything was going to be fixed, so we got a problem. Okay, let's look into it. Oh, you've got jumbo frames. It's something that the vendor didn't even know that they were doing. So That for us has been fantastic. Just on a side note, we've also, going back on the product families, we have also deployed a camera. We have a remote data center, and we have our aggregate switches, which is not on our premise. It's actually in somebody else's building. And that was something that we were sending stuff out to Texas. And as we're sending it out to Texas, we needed something that the vendor who's actually going to be standing up the stands there, we need to be able to give them a camera. We could just say, okay, we can put it inside our cabinet, plug and play, simple to put in a security camera. We needed something very simple that we could literally talk to the vendor through and say, hand them the piece of equipment and say, plug it in, point it towards the front, you're done. And that was something that for us was a very easy win. So, and we were able to get security, visible security at clear in a different state.
Thanks, Ernest. So the next question that I have for you is, how are you currently managing the medical devices?
I would definitely like some, what specifically they're looking for. What we have done is we have created a separate VLAN for medical devices. And then through there, we're able to put ACLs and put some controls from that standpoint. I do know that Meraki switches will integrate with both Cisco ICE and Forescout for if you're looking for a NAC solution. So those are two options that I know also work.
All right, and the next question that we have is there anything that Meraki has automated for you in regard to reports that have helped a lot? Have you used the topology page?
We have not used a topology page, honestly, for us, but we have on the firewall, stuff like that, we have automated where we're getting reports on that, and we are also getting some usage, and we've been able, that has helped us a lot to kind of just keep tabs. Also, getting the configuration changes has been a very big value add to us, and getting those because sometimes a tech, even though we've made it as simple as possible, sometimes the tech may make a mistake, and we realize that, you know, this is a printer, and they put it on the medical device VLAN, and they're saying it's not working, I don't understand, and they just didn't realize it. And us, we've got the config file, we've seen what they've made the change to, and we say, weren't you installing a printer? Yes. Well, you put it on the wrong VLAN. We'll help you out. We'll fix it. Done. So those things have been very valuable to us.
All right, and the next question that came from our audience is, I know that the switches mostly use centralized management consoles. In case the site lost connection to the management console, how can we fix the issue in a survival situation?
Okay, I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure, so I know that these switches mostly use centralized management console, and in the case that the site lost connection to the management console, how can we fix the issue in a survival situation?
In this survival situation, and Paul, I'm going to let you make sure that I'm being accurate, our experience at least has been there is a management port where I can go in and change, I can do a little bit of configuration changes. I can change VLANs. Now I can't go in and do a whole bunch of routing configuration and, you know, do a bunch of adds. But if I just need to change something from one VLAN to another, I can do that through the console port. I recall doing that at one of our sites when we lost network connectivity, internet connectivity. But there is a limitation on that as far as I can't go in and create all new IP routes and stuff if I have no internet or cloud access.
Yeah, and just to confirm, that's absolutely correct there, Ernest. Basically, there is that management interface, and you can do stuff like setting the IP address, the VLAN that you need. That's exactly correct.
The next question that we have for you is, how do you back up and restore switches and AP configuration?
On our core switches, on the Meraki switches themselves, and I'll tell you, we have done a replacement. We've had a lightning strike, And because I've been able to go in, I don't have to not just clone network, but I can clone a switch. And we have literally had a lightning strike totally fry a switch. And literally, we cloned it. We took the switch, we took the settings on that switch, and we cloned it down to another layer 2 switch. Someone got in the car as fast as they could drive to the location. As soon as they unplugged, they got on site, they unplugged the cables, and the amount of time to reconfigure that switch was literally plugging in the cables. So it was just that simple and that quick as far as, so from the configuration standpoint, you can pull, it's all in the cloud. Because it's all in the cloud, it really doesn't matter if the device itself dies, to be honest, because you just clone that exact config down to the next switch and you just pay attention where you plug stuff in if you're using port-based VLANs. So we have also set them up to you, and we are using syslog, and we do have an admin login on these. So we're able to pull those into WhatsUp Gold, and we're also monitoring from that direction as well. So we're not only using just a cloud login, but we've also decided to do, and that's just part of my philosophy, I like a backup for my backup.
And Ernest, we have time for one last final question. Has the Harbin Clinic ever done penetration testing on their network? And if so, what were the results?
From the Meraki switch side, it has, that was absolutely solid. And partly because we're using the 2-factor authentication for our techs and everything from that side, yes, we've had penetration tests. And of course, no place is 100% secure. But I will tell you from the Meraki side and from the switch side, there was no issues found. Or from the Meraki firewalls that were publicly exposed, there was no issues found on those as well.
Well, thank you, Ernest, for joining us for today's presentation, and thank you everyone who was able to join us for this afternoon's presentation with Meraki and Harbin Clinic. We look forward to keeping in touch with you, and feel free to reach out to the Meraki team for next steps. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day.